Hi guys, I hope you're all having fun and enjoying this weekend. The weather is perfect, the sun is out, and I have an internet star with me, Ankur. Welcome to Sahitya English. It's fantastic having you with
Thank
us.
you so much, Rahul. Thanks a lot.
We've been hearing about a lot of what Ankur's doing, and thanks to this conversation, I had an opportunity to read your book. What we're going to do over the next about 30 minutes is do a crash course on everything that Ankur's learnt about, right? So in his book, in his videos, he has different aspects he touches upon. So what I did, Ankur, is I went through the book, I took some notes, and what we'll do is one by one get you to talk about some of your learnings.
That'll be awesome.
So it's essentially a crash course in doing epic shit. And I'll start with the fact that there are so many young people sitting over here. Many of them in their early 20s. What would Ankur Warikoo be telling his 20-year-old self?
That's a great question to start with. What I realized, Rahul, that in my 20s I made a lot of decisions, and most of these decisions had no basis. They were either impositions by society or my own biases about my own self. And those decisions tend to be the worst ones because you think you're making a decision, but you actually aren't. You're just choosing what your desires are and converted that into a decision. So if I could go back in time and advise the 20-year-old Ankur, I would say whatever decision you take, whether it's right or wrong, doesn't matter. Just take it from a point of awareness. You should know what are the choices in front of you so that the choice you make is driven by your own judgment of what's right for you, irrespective of whether it's going to work out for you or not. And that does require you to be a little deliberate and not be like going with the flow. Log kar rahe hain to kar lo, dunya keh rahi hai to kar lo. It is more about what do I want to do, why do I want to do this, and thus just the choice that you make.
You know, let's spend a moment on content creation. There are so many people sitting here who would love to be content creators, find some way of turning those reels or YouTube videos into a means of sustenance. Everybody can't do it.
Yeah.
Some like you have. What are the lessons you learned along the way? If you were consulting for someone who wants to be a content creator and make an earning out of it,
Sure.
what's your crash?
Number one, I believe everyone can do it. It genuinely is an open playing platform for everybody, and it's been democratized to the extent that it hasn't been so. And that was a shout out for someone who agreed. There are three things that I would say. Number one, which is the most important, is you need to decide what you're going to talk about. It cannot be about what the audience wants to listen. And that's a big conflict because a lot of people want to create content jo janta sunna chahti hai. But then you become part of the competitive environment where everyone is trying to create content for them. It's like everyone wants to sell credit cards to people who already have a credit card. Doesn't work. So please decide what is it that you are passionate about. And it could be, frankly, anything at all. And start creating content there. So that's step number one. Step number two is by virtue of that, figure out who is it that's listening to you. Because that will be your self-selection. So I often say this, don't try and impress people. Do your work and see who gets impressed by it. Because that's your tribe. That's who you want to speak to. And then number three, which is the biggest thing in content, is be consistent at that for at least a year and a half, 2 years. Which is the hardest piece because people don't want that. They want overnight success. Rato raat koi reel
So you write
viral ho
about a
jaye.
period where almost for 4 years you were doing videos and nobody was watching.
Absolutely.
And yet you somehow had the courage to stick to your guns and just do what you were doing.
I don't think it was courage. It was just the passion of wanting to speak and express about what I felt passionately about. If I was trying to create content for them, I would opt out after 6 months after no seeing any progress. But because I was passionate about what I was talking about, I was like, I don't care who's listening in. Because even if 300 people come and watch that video, I will be wild if 300 random people walked into my house and listened to me speak for 10 minutes. So why would I dismiss those 300 people who came to my YouTube video and clicked like on it because they felt connected to what I said?
You know, what's most amazing about Ankur is the fact that he speaks so candidly about his failures. Most people would like to present this facade of someone who's uber successful, and even if they failed, it's something they'd rather stay silent about. They tom-tom their successes, stay silent about their failures. Let's go through some of your failures and talk about what they taught you. And what stood out to me was when you take over the Indian operations of Nearby, try and run that, you've got a whole big team that you're responsible for, and that goes bust. Why do you think it went wrong? In hindsight, what did you learn from it?
So for context, in 2015, we bought over the India operations of Groupon, which is what I was heading until then, and made it into Nearby. And that became an independent entity. We raised money and a whole lot of money. And the biggest mistake that I made as a founder CEO was to believe that the product was all ready, it was brilliant, and all that we needed was visibility and people to get to know of us. So just pump all that money into marketing and just pay through the attention that you could. Clearly didn't work because the product wasn't ready. And that had this domino effect where we struggled to make money. We, of course, made some bad choices. We had to lay off people. And all of that was a stark reminder yet again that if you do not know how to cover your blind spots and you don't have people around you who will call out your bullshit and tell you that this is possibly wrong, you're going to live and be happily living ever after in your cocoon and not see the world come crashing down. And that hit me really hard. It changed me as an individual. And we, of course, went back, course-corrected. We thankfully still continue to survive. We're profitable. We're nearly not as big as we thought we would be. But the biggest lesson that I learned from that exercise was everyone has blind spots. And you need to always have people who are calling you out on those blind spots because it's impossible for you, at least at that point, to look at those and make sense of the real world.
That's very important. That's a good lesson there. The other thing that Ankur talks about now, I just want to tell everyone sitting here that if you have a question you want to ask Ankur, you can do that. Not just now, just think of your question. In a few minutes, we'll make this interactive and you can throw in your question. What you write about in your book is different leadership styles for different people. Don't try and lead everyone the same way. And that I think is interesting because everyone typically has a particular leadership style that they think works for them and they try and then implement that across teams. You have a different approach. Lead different people differently. Talk about that.
So it comes from a very common philosophy in life that at scale, it's very easy to look at people as data points on an Excel sheet and not as people. But every day when someone shows up at work, there is a certain motivation to do that. It could be money, it could be acknowledgement, it could be growth, it could be fame, it could be anything whatsoever. And if you do not attend to that motivation, you're essentially just trying to lead everybody with the same yield that you have. And that may work for somebody because it's directly in line with what their motivation is, but it may be in direct conflict with what they wish to serve and how. And that's when I realized in business, the hardest thing to scale should be leadership. Leadership should not become easier as you grow as a company. So if anyone comes to me and says, hey, I have a big team now and it's so easy to manage that team, I red flag. Because it should be by design harder and harder to lead people as you have more and more people coming in. That requires a lot of investment of time, emotional energy, your, of course, physical bandwidth, but most importantly, it requires you to get into their shoes and even try and comprehend why do they show up at work every day? What is their key driver to do so? And it's wrong to assume that it is one thing for everyone. It isn't. But the minute you do that, it just unlocks things because then people feel heard. And when people feel heard, they will give your entire life to that.
You know, I'd done a job we met with Robin Sharma, who'd just come out with a book at that time called The 5 a.m. Club. I read that you wake up at 4:30, which is like 30 minutes before Robin Sharma, and everyone sitting here is wondering, you know, we're just heading into winters. You want to be in your razai, you don't really want to wake up. You're saying even in the winters or in summers, you wake up at 4:30, and why is that the most important thing you do?
It's funny you asked this question. Only yesterday I answered this question for somebody. It's like, how do you get up at 4:30 in winters? I was like, getting up and feeling cold are two very different things. You still can get up at 4:30, but you may still feel cold and you wouldn't want to get out of your rajai. So just make yourself warm, whichever way it is. Just wear leggings and pullovers, jackets, whatever makes your day come through. And this is my beautiful way of doing it and I love it. So the first thing that I do, Rahul, when I get up, irrespective of what time I have, is I have a glass of water for 10 to 15 minutes. I don't drink, but people sip glass, right? So I don't drink, but people say it's close to sipping wine. So I'm assuming they're right because why would they lie? So I sip water like it's wine. And I literally take a gulp. I feel it. It's really nice. And during winters, the only change that I do is that it's warm water. And I use a steel glass. So I cup my hands around the steel glass. बहुत अच्छा लगता है, गरम गरम. It's nice, it's happy. I don't go out in the balcony or what not the thing is. But the reason why that morning routine for me, not just that glass of water, but when I get up, I meditate, I read, I write, I go and play tennis, which is a sport that I follow and love. I go to the gym, I get my kids ready for school. My wife and I have a lovely breakfast, and then we get started for work.
Sounds like half a day already, and this is when most of us are still just sleeping, right?
And that's the best part. So by the time I start work at 9:30, I've had 5 hours to myself doing things that I would want to do for myself. And I question all of you here, when was the last time you gave yourself 5 minutes in a day? Like 5 minutes only to yourself, not to your phone, not to your book, not to any other person, but only to your thoughts. It is crazy how an entire generation is being raised which does not know how to spend time with themselves. And that's why we keep looking for relationships and love and acknowledgement and everything outside of us. And it's scary, to be frank. But the reason why this is important is because by the time 9:30 is done, and I've had these 5 hours, there'll be very few things in the world now that will unsettle me. Because I've just settled myself. I've centered myself. तो बहुत कम चीजें होंगी जो मेरे उस centering को उखाड़ पाएंगी. And it takes a lot, maybe news, maybe some event or something to just shackle me. But otherwise, I'm like, okay, great. I've done it bit. And yeah, bad news will come in, good news will come in, and news that you react to will come in. But that morning routine is not something I would compromise on, ever.
Okay, I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to make this interactive and get all of you to jump in and ask some questions as well. Okay, so can we have a mic going around, and do we know where that mic is? Okay, so that gentleman in the blue t-shirt, can you follow my instructions, please? And okay, this guy is doing his own thing, which is fine. I was suggesting that you give the question to this gentleman sitting in front. आप मेरी तरफ नहीं देख रहे सर. ये वाले जो शख्स है ना आगे जिन्होंने हाथ ऊपर किया, हाँ मेरी तरफ देख लीजिए. Thank you so much. Yes.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर. सर मैं BA पॉलिटिकल साइंस फर्स्ट ईयर का स्टूडेंट हूँ रामजस कॉलेज. अभी CVT एग्जाम दिया तो उसमें लकीली हो गया नॉर्थ कैंपस में.
Congratulations.
थैंक यू सर. सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है आपसे कि काफ़ी लोग बोलते हैं कि फॉलो क्लीशे है कि फॉलो पैशन, आप जो कर मर्जी है कीजिए. पर बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमारे सिचुएशंस नहीं हो पाती है, और फिर बाद में आके अगर हम अपना पैशन फॉलो करते हैं तो एक सेल्फ डाउट भी आता है कि उसे कोप अप कैसे करें. फिर सेल्फ डाउट है कि हम नहीं कर पाएंगे, तो ये बहुत आता है कि क्योंकि हमारा डिसीजन है, फिर लोग बोलते हैं कि तुमने करा था, तो सेल्फ डाउट को कोप अप कैसे करें.
तो अंशुल बताया आपने नाम? अंशुल या फॉलो योर पैशन मेरे हिसाब से बहुत ही बेहुदा एडवाइस है. बिकॉज उसमें 2 चीजें एज्यूम होती हैं. एक कि आपको ऑलरेडी पता है कि आपका पैशन क्या है, और दूसरा वो कहीं छुपा हुआ था आपकी जिंदगी में और आपका फर्ज बनता है उस चीज को ढूंढना. विच इज नॉट व्हाट आई बिलीव इन. आई डोंट थिंक वन कैन फाइंड योर पैशन एंड फॉलो इट. वन बिल्ड्स योर पैशन ओवर टाइम. तो आप अपने 20s में आप बहुत 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 यंग है. प्लीज दुनिया का जो वो टाइमलाइन वाला असूल है ना कि 25 तक ये, 30 तक ये, 35 तक ये, 40 तक ये, उसको भूल जाइए. जिंदगी अपने रेस पे चलिएगा, अपने स्पीड पे चलिएगा. And the way that you have to do this, at least my suggestion will be, in your 20s, Anshul, spend your time exploring yourself. And that means कि कौन सी चीजें हैं जिसको करने में आपको अच्छा लगता है, कौन सी चीजें हैं जिसको करने में आप बहुत अच्छे हैं, कौन सी चीजें हैं जो आपको एक्चुअली पैसा कमा के दे सकते हैं, फुलफिलमेंट दे सकते हैं, कंटेंटमेंट दे सकते हैं. It may be BA, it could be content writing, it could be digital marketing, it could be Web3 development, it could be farming, and nothing is out of boundary. दुनिया आपको 1000 चीजें बोलेंगी, लेकिन आप अपने आप से बात करते रहिएगा और अपने आप को सिर्फ एक ही बोलिएगा. And if you spend your 20s in exploring your passion and discovering it and honing it, then that is the best use of your decade. There is no passion to be found anywhere. It is only to be built over time. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi Ankur, a big fan over here, and first of all, before the question, I want to thank you personally for waging the war on FDs. If you had done this 20 years ago and my parents had listened to you, my inheritance would be twice as much. But coming down to the question, I personally am, I started a now unsuccessful tech venture, and as a leader in the tech.com space, I want to ask you that if you had to boil down your work in terms of or your role as a CEO in terms of people you're bringing into the company, the product that you're building, and the culture that you're instilling in everybody below you, which of those 3 will you prioritize and rank them, and why would you place them at those particular ranks?
There's a beautiful book that I read called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. If you haven't read it, please pick it up. It's a terrific book by a guy called Ben Horowitz, who runs this investment company called A16Z. And in there is a chapter that Ben writes about. The title of that chapter is People, Product, Profits, in that order. And I love that because that is so true and something that I've realized as a founder. Center yourself on the people first. And when I say people, it doesn't mean necessarily your team. It also means your consumers. And think about actively what is it that they want in their life. Whether you attend to people that you are hiring, whether you attend to people that you're building for, you have to be consciously aware of what is it that they want in life and why is it that they care about it so deeply. Basis that you build a product. And a product is not always consumer facing. A product is also what you build as your company. Your culture is also a product. Your processes are also a product. The way that you conduct yourself as a leader is also a product. And that then defines whether people that you were catering to have the product to solve their problems or not. And if you do that secondly and do it right, then profits usually is a direct outcome of that. But even if it isn't, that becomes your center, but not before people and products have been taken care of. I follow the same principle. It's worked commendably for me, so I wouldn't know of any other way to suggest. So people, product, profits, in that order.
The other interesting thing about Ankur, and I think that's what makes him special, is the fact that he really didn't get to go to the top schools that you were trying for, and yet you did well for yourself. And that is important because a lot of people, whether it is say an IIM or an IIT in India, or one of the Ivy League institutes, if they don't get in there, they somehow start thinking of themselves as being inferior or not cut for super success in life. And I think a lot of your effort is trying to break that notion. They don't need to get into a Harvard or into an IIM to be able to succeed.
I so agree with that. And I think you beautifully said that, Rahul. We dismiss ourselves before we allow the world to dismiss us. So in our head, when we're entering into an interview, we're telling ourselves, मैं तो IT से हूँ ही नहीं, तो मुझे ये क्यों भाव देंगे, मुझे ये क्यों select करेंगे, मुझे ये क्यों इतना तनख्वाह देंगे, so on and so forth. And that's the first cut. That's it. You've eliminated yourself before people got a chance to eliminate you. So it all boils down to what you think of where you are and whether you even have respect for your own self for what you've done.
Okay, let's take more questions. Okay, this gentleman in the red, Skivi, has his hand up. And
sir, good morning to both, good evening both of you. Sir, I am huge fan of both of you. Sir, my question to Ankur Warikoo sir is that, sir, you are a young and very popular entrepreneurs nowadays. So, sir, as a youth, we witness that many youths are following entrepreneurship as their career. But we also see that it's not a cup of tea of everyone, and they ended up with like ruining their career and ended up with ruining their career. So what's your take on that? What your suggestion to this type of youth? And one more question is, sir, so can you suggest something to start entrepreneurship?
I love this. Like, okay, आपका नाम?
Siddharth Dubey.
Siddharth, thank you so much. Question. Siddharth, so what you're saying is very right. Entrepreneurship आजकल ना बहुत glamorous बन चुका है. Everyone wants to become a founder. Everyone wants to become an entrepreneur. अब लोगों को entrepreneur word pronounce करना भी आता है. पहले तो हम entrepreneur ही बोलते थे, but अब the entrepreneur है, the right way of doing it and so on. But here are 3 reasons why one should not become an entrepreneur or start their own business. Number 1, you're doing it because you want to earn money. Entrepreneurship is possibly the worst way to make money. क्योंकि जो लोग पैसे बना लेते हैं हम सिर्फ उन्हीं के बारे में अखबारों में पढ़ते हैं तो हमें लगता है कि लाखों करोड़ का ये मामला है but that's not true. There are millions of people who die even before reaching any stage of conversation that we will never hear of. So if you're in a job and you're really good in that job, you have a far higher chance of making money in your life than to become an entrepreneur and hope to make it. Number 2, you want to become an entrepreneur because you hate your current life. मुझे मेरी जॉब नहीं पसंद है, मुझे मेरी जिंदगी नहीं पसंद है, मुझे मेरा मैनेजर नहीं पसंद है, मुझे मेरे ये नहीं रिश्ते नहीं पसंद हैं. So you want a change in life and you believe that this will be a great way to do it. Wrong reason, because there is no core reason why you're even doing it. It's just your angst towards your real life. Third, which is bigger right now, you want to become an entrepreneur क्योंकि हर कोई बन रहा है. So you're living in perpetual FOMO, fear of missing out. अगर मैं नहीं बना तो मैं ही गधा हूँ और फिर लोग मुझ पे हंसेंगे कि 9 से 5 की नौकरी कर रहा है, अपना ज़मीर बेच दिया, and so I don't want to be that person. absolutely the wrong choices to make, wrong ways of doing it. The only reason why you should become an entrepreneur, which is, in my opinion, the only way that people become successful at it, is that you genuinely want to solve a problem that you're passionate about, and that problem is a big enough problem in people's life. ये दो चीजें बहुत जरूरी हैं सिद्धार्थ, कि आपको genuinely एक प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करनी है और वो प्रॉब्लम लोगों की जिंदगी में एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है. जब तक ये दोनों चीजें मर्ज नहीं होंगी तब तक सक्सेस बहुत मुश्किल है. तो लगे रहेंगे ट्रेडमिल पे, भागते रहेंगे, पसीने आते रहेंगे, हांफते रहेंगे, लेकिन यू वुड नॉट मूव एन इंच फॉरवर्ड.
Okay, come. That girl over there is very persistent with her hand being up. Let's give her a chance. Go for it.
हेलो सर, आई एम सुष्मिता सिंह. मैं मास कॉम की स्टूडेंट हूँ. तो मेरा सवाल आपसे है, सर आप मेरे आइडियल हो.
अरे इनसे सवाल पूछो आप.
नहीं, आप राहुल जी से पूछिए.
मैं बाद में आके आपसे बात कर लेता हूँ. अभी अंकुर का सेशन चल रहा है.
मेरे को पहली बार मिले और मैं आपकी बहुत बड़ी फैन हूँ.
मैं भी.
अरे ये तो बॉल रिवर्स स्विंग हो गई. चलिए, थैंक यू सो मच. इट्स वेरी स्वीट ऑफ यू, बट थैंक यू.
मुझे आपसे पूछना था.
पूछिए.
सर, एक बेहतर जर्नलिस्ट बनने के लिए आप क्या टिप्स देना चाहोगे?
नहीं, एक अच्छे जर्नलिस्ट बनने के लिए मेरे लिए सबसे जरूरी है कि किसी की साइड मत लो आप. अगर आपने डिसाइड कर लिया कि आप बीजेपी के साइड हो या कांग्रेस के साइड हो या आम आदमी पार्टी के साइड हो, तब आप अच्छे जर्नलिस्ट नहीं हो सकते. अगर आप जाओ और फैक्ट्स को ऑब्जेक्टिवली असेस करो कि क्या सच है क्या झूठ है, फिर आप अच्छे जर्नलिस्ट बनने की कोशिश कर सकते हो. और अच्छा बुरा तो बहुत सब्जेक्टिव है ना. आपको अपना ईमान साफ रखना चाहिए और आपको मेहनत करनी चाहिए. कोई आपको अच्छा मानेगा, कोई आपको बुरा मानना चाहिए. आपको उसके बारे में नहीं सोचना चाहिए. यू शुड जस्ट गो आउट एंड डू व्हाट यू नीड टू डू. हो सकता है कि आपके लिए ताली कम बजे, लेकिन आपका ईमान साफ है तो आप आराम से सोओगे और सुबह जगोगे और फिर से काम पे जा पाओगे. एंड यू विल एंजॉय व्हाट यू डू. इफ यू एंजॉय व्हाट यू डू, दैट्स व्हाट मैटर्स मोस्ट, राइट?
Thank
So
you.
thank you. Come, let's take some more questions. That girl at the back. Yes, the girl in the black at the back.
Good evening, sir. I'm such a big fan of yours.
Thank you.
So, sir, I want to be a copywriter and a content writer. So initially I started content writing, but later I found that I want to be a copywriter and I can do that. So, but I still not decided my niche yet. So I still started my content creation on LinkedIn. But as people says ki you really need to be specific about what you should post on LinkedIn. Like I don't have a specific niche right now. So what should I post on LinkedIn or any other platform?
So when you're starting up, and let's broaden the question of content creation in general. When you're starting up, you may not know what you want to create content on. You may want to discover it through what people tell you, and there are 2 or 3 things that you may be passionate about. Number one, as I said, please speak about anything that you passionately believe in. क्योंकि अगर आप किसी और की वॉइस उठा के उसमें अपने वर्ड्स पे रोने की कोशिश करेंगे, you will lose the motivation after a few weeks, at best months. You have to speak about things that you are passionate about. So that's number one. But if you may not know in all of those things which are the ones that you should pick up, float all of them into the universe and see what is it that people are liking. Because then that will be the convergence of what you feel good about and what people feel good about through your work. That will take time. Don't put the pressure of knowing that on day one. कोई जल्दी नहीं है, कहीं नहीं पहुंचना है. There is a beautiful life and you have to take it slow because good things take time. When you build that out, you'll be surprised how fast in 3 to 6 months itself, you will know what your niche is because people would have told you that.
Okay, come, let's take the next question. I want to give a chance to somebody right at the back. That gentleman who has his hand up in the grayish jacket.
Hi, Ankur. This is Aditya. We had a small chats in 2015-17, LinkedIn or over email, your ISB email one, right? So that time I was a part of Urban Club. So I have a question. जो मैंने आपसे मतलब आपके thoughts and book में मैंने जो नहीं सुना उस बारे में मेरा question है. That is, I have जो मेरे parents हैं वो काफी old हैं, right? And I feel that जो उनका perspective है मुझे change करना and वो काफी मुश्किल है. They are in 70s, right? And जो मेरे thoughts है, dream है, whatever I am, right? So, and I stay in Delhi, they stay, in far. Now, I feel that वो जो gap है, वो मैं कैसे change करूँ and वो I feel sometime guilt कि मुझे तो अपना career में focus करना है and whatever it is. Then मैं उसी time सोचता हूँ, मेरे पास तो बहुत कुछ है. I can see Netflix, I can speak on this topic. What they have is television and the cable and then they see. उसका जो पर्सपेक्ट वो है जो आगे बढ़ने का जो वो है ना, इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू वो आगे प्रोग्रेस करे, उनकी थॉट्स चेंज हो, राइट? वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कि हम कैसे करें एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप लाइक दैट. सो I want to ask them, because at any age we will be going through the same thing, right? And for me, it is not success only in terms of monetary part or my career part. It is also about the loved ones, So what is your take? Because आप भी उसी through कहीं गए होंगे, और for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question, Aditya. Firstly, I do not bear the responsibility of changing anyone. You can never help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. तो ये बहुत जरूरी चीज है जानना. आपके माँ बाप, एंड दिस इज नॉट जस्ट योर पेरेंट्स, आई बिलीव अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल विल रिकॉग्नाइज एंड रिलेट टू व्हाट यू आर सेइंग. दे हैव रीच्ड अ सर्टेन एज जहां उनके हैबिट्स, उनके बायसेस, उनके एक्सपीरियंसेस ने उनको शेप करके एक ऐसी जिंदगी पे लाया है वेयर दे आर हैप्पी टू ड्रिफ्ट एंड टू जस्ट लिव इन दैट existence. They're not unhappy. They're not suffering. And even if they are, it's not enough for them to want to make a change, because the change is far harder effort than whatever is it that they're going through on a daily basis. So let them be. Absolutely let them be. It is almost the same thing that people are trying to say, no, I want to make sure that my parents don't invest in FDs. Of course they will invest in FDs. That was the surest way of protecting your money when they were growing up. It may not be today, and that's perfectly fine. That's the choice that they've made. You have to focus on yourself. And you have to focus on how you can be there for them, not change them. Be there for them in whatever capacity you can. And that is a very important distinction to make, that at least I made several years back in my life, and I've benefited a lot from that. I stay close to my parents. When they need me, I'm always there. I watch out for them. I look up to them. But I am never saying, ye mat khao, ye mat dekho, ye mat suno, WhatsApp pe kyun apni zindagi puri barbaad kar rahe ho? Because that is their mode of getting to know their world. And I'm just happy that they use technology for whatever purpose they do. Let them be.
Let's spend a moment talking about what Ankur just mentioned, which is the importance of knowledge about personal finance in your life. Growing up, I saw so many people who had 8 or 10 insurance policies. I mean, you can die only once. Like, why do you have all these insurance policies? It kind of makes no sense. So pick one good one rather than have all of these multiple insurance policies in your war against fixed deposits. And even really smart people in our office are investing in penny stocks, are investing in insurance. And it's not even in insurance. Like, how are you investing in insurance? You're waging this war, but are you able to do this at scale? And what's your advice? Like, should this be a fixed part of school and college curriculum, so you have some basic understanding of the tenets of personal finance?
100%. If I could change the curriculum and introduce one subject, it would be personal finance. Not because it is about making money. It is about understanding your relationship with money. People will have a very different approach towards money, basis how they were raised, their experiences, and so on. And they need to have an understanding of that. So it's unfortunate that it's not there. It's also very exciting that the internet allows for all of this information and education to be available to everybody. So it doesn't need to be in the top schools, in the best mediums. Literally anyone with a phone and an internet connection now has access to the same personal finance education that you and I would have. And that is certainly a shift. And the saving grace is any, Rahul, is if my data is not wrong and my news is not wrong, then as of last month, this was the first month ever where the deposits in mutual funds were higher than the deposits in fixed deposits in this country. It's never happened before. So I think it's a good first step and a good first month.
Heading in the right direction, but then comes the urge to get rich fast.
Yes.
And then you start investing in all kinds of shady cryptocurrencies, many of which are just Ponzi schemes. And you're investing, as I said, in penny stocks, thinking, isse paisa ban jayega. So the switch from the safety of a fixed deposit to the kind of stress that comes with the volatility of a cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's insane. And these, by the way, coexist. I know of individuals who would park 90% of the money in a fixed deposit and then literally gamble with the 10%, which is like कि रातों रात दुगना हो जाएगा, तिगना हो जाएगा, and then हम बेच देंगे and फिर हमें fixed deposit की भी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. And that's the nature of how the human mind works. We'd love to take shortcuts with the hope that we wouldn't have to slog through the daily grind. And we still have that daily grind because that's the only thing we know. And the only advice that I often tell people, and this will be the same for this audience as well, do not ever put your money in anything which will make you lose your sleep. That's it. That is as simple as that. I'm not even qualifying कि वो कहाँ है. कुछ लोगों के लिए क्रिप्टो में पैसा डालना is perfectly fine, क्योंकि उनकी फितरत वैसी है. कुछ लोगों के लिए स्टॉक मार्केट में भी पैसा डालना डरावना है, बिकॉज उनकी फितरत वैसी है. So do not put your money in anything that makes you lose your sleep, because it's not worth it. It would never be worth it.
Cool. Let's take some more questions. Okay, the gentleman in the yellow check shirt. You know, the other cool thing is, just by the number of people who are putting their hands up, we have a packed house at the back, is that he's made personal finance interesting and cool. And I think that's quite awesome, because personal finance is generally considered very dreary, boring, formulaic. You know, you kind of made it cool, which is nice. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Ankur. Ankur, I'm Mohit, और मुझे आपसे एक बात पूछनी है. You know, आपने भी बहुत अच्छी बात बोली थी किसी को about people, product and profits. और मैंने आपको आपकी लाइफ में करते हुए देखा है. जब आप नियर बाय में थे, आप लिटरली अपने कस्टमर्स को लिंक्डइन पे उनकी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते थे. मैंने आपको पीपल्स में इन्वेस्टेड देखा है, और आपसे मैंने बहुत कुछ सीखा अपनी लाइफ में. बट एक जगह पे आके कुछ ऐसा शिफ्ट हुआ कि मेरे बिलीफ पे क्वेश्चन आ गया. क्वेश्चन ऑन बिलीफ अबाउट अंकुर वारिकू. आप जब तक नियर बाय में थे, आप एक पीपल्स पर्सन थे. आप जब तक नियर बाय में थे, आपके पीपल थे वो लोग जो नियर बाय को यूज करते हैं. आप कंज्यूमर्स की प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते थे. लेकिन जब आप एक कंटेंट क्रिएटर बने, तो आपके पीपल हैं वो लोग जो आपका कंटेंट देखते हैं, जो आपका कंटेंट कंज्यूम करते हैं. मुझे याद है मैं आपके कंटेंट के लिए आपको व्हाट्सएप पे अप्रिशिएट करता था, और इट वॉज गुड. आप पैसा इन्वेस्ट, आपने एक वीडियो बनाया था हाउ टू इन्वेस्ट योर मनी इन योर 20s या 30s पे कुछ वीडियो बनाया था. तो मैंने एग्जैक्टली आपके वीडियो को देख के अपने पैसे को रेप्लिकेट करने का ट्राई किया. और रियल एस्टेट को लेके मुझे क्वेश्चन आया था. मैंने आपको व्हाट्सएप किया कि एंड आई एम योर पीपल, आई वॉज योर पीपल एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. मैंने आपको व्हाट्सएप पे क्वेश्चन किया और आपने मुझे ब्लॉक कर दिया. मुझे रीजन समझ नहीं आया. मैंने आपको ईमेल भेजे, आपने मुझे एक रिप्लाई नहीं दिया. एक रिप्लाई नहीं दिया. मैंने आपको 2, 3, 4 भेजे, आपने एक रिप्लाई नहीं दिया. मेरे को ये जानना है अंकुर कि वो अंकुर जो पीपल्स पर्सन थे और ये अंकुर जिन्होंने मुझे ब्लॉक कर दिया, मुझे कोई रिप्लाई नहीं दिया, व्हाट वाज द रीजन ऑफ दैट शिफ्ट? या मतलब या तो आप ये कह सकते हैं कि हाँ मोहित आई वाज रॉन्ग, मैंने गलत किया, या आप ये कह सकते हैं कि मोहित दिस वाज द रीजन ऑफ माय शिफ्ट. वो जो पीपल्स पर्सन थे फिर नहीं रहे आप तो पीपल्स पर्सन ना.
इसको कहते हैं बाउंसर है. वो बेचारा बैटिंग कर रहा है, बहुत पीछे से आई, सर पे लगी. चलिए भाई अंकुर बताइए क्यों ब्लॉक किया आपने?
आपका नाम मोहित है, मैं आज ही आपकी ईमेल का जवाब दूंगा. लेकिन मोहित, ये एक जिंदगी में मैंने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज सीखी है जो मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा. आई डोंट नो यू पर्सनली, सो प्लीज टेक इट फॉर व्हाट एवर इट इज, शायद बड़े भाई के रूप में. आपने जो किया वो एक 1-to-1 रिलेशनशिप थी. मैंने अंकुर वारिकू को ईमेल लिखी. अंकुर वारिकू की जिंदगी में 1-to-many रिलेशनशिप्स हैं, जहां मुझे बहुत सारे लोग लिखते हैं. दैट डजंट मीन कि मुझे मोहित से कोई दुश्मनी है, मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगता है, कुछ भी. इट इज जस्ट द एबिलिटी टू अटेंड टू इट एट स्केल. दैट्स द ओनली थिंग. सो द मिनट इट बिकम्स हार्डर, you should never try to make the one-on-one relationship that you have had as the only relationship that exists. आपको हमेशा ये सोचना होगा जिंदगी में, हमेशा, कि जो मैं ये इंटरैक्शन इनिशिएट कर रहा हूं, दूसरे इंसान के लिए वो इंटरैक्शन कैसे रिसीव हो रही होगी. एंड इफ दे आर रिसीविंग इट इन अ कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट फैशन फ्रॉम हाउ यू सेंट इट, then that may be the simplest reason of why that interaction was not received in the way. मैं ईमेल का जवाब दूंगा.
अच्छा,
मैं बदला नहीं
कर लिया
हूं, मैं बदला नहीं हूं.
चलो एक सेकंड दे दो माइक. लास्ट क्वेश्चन में आप ऐसे ना, अब बहुत पंगा हो जाएगा इसे.
जब मैंने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा था, क्वेश्चन वाज वेरी जेन्युइन टू योर कंटेंट.
मुझे ना जेन्युइनली याद भी नहीं है, तो मैं कमेंट भी नहीं कर सकता.
जो आपने इनका रेप्लिकेट किया इन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रेटेजी, फायदा हुआ कि नुकसान?
नहीं, वो तो डेफिनेटली फायदे वाली चीज है, मुझे तो डाउट ही नहीं है.
रिटर्न ऑन
लेकिन
इन्वेस्टमेंट
कैसे
बजाओ ताली फिर. ये बताओ, रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट मिल गया. बड़ा ही डिसर्निंग और हाई एक्सपेक्टेशन वाला इन्वेस्टर है आपका.
मैं आपका फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर नहीं हूं, तो अगर आप मेरे से कोई फाइनेंशियल एडवाइस मांग रहे होंगे, एक तो मैं फाइनेंशियल एडवाइस नहीं देता हूं. I'm not qualified to do that, so please don't ever listen to me. तो मेरे को बहुत डर लग रहा है जब आपने मेरा पूरा का पूरा वो रेप्लिकेट कर दिया. वो मेरे लिए काम किया है. आपके लिए अगर वो काम कर गया तो आप लकी हो गए हैं. मैं स्मार्ट नहीं हूं. तो प्लीज ये गलती मत करिएगा. There has to be an expert that you follow.
I think if you read his book, one of the points he's making, which is important for you to acknowledge, he's not suggesting that you copy him. He's giving you a structural framework to think about how you wish to invest your money, not necessarily at all suggesting that you replicate. In fact, the whole premise is not to do what others are doing and follow that. So ये बड़ा important है. ऐसे तो आप फसाद हो गए यार. चलो anyway.
Hi Ankur, I'm Khushi. So I would like to ask you about how important it is to start investing in your 20s, because I'm in my 20s, so I would like to know about that. And one more question, that other than YouTubers, mainstream media is not talking about financial literacy, personal finance basically. So what is your take on that?
पहले सवाल का जवाब मैं दूंगा, दूसरे सवाल का जवाब राहुल देंगे.
Okay, great, yeah.
It is the time that you invest in is far more important than the amount that you invest in Khushi. Because there is a very fundamental thing called compounding. And it's not true for money, it's true for life. Your relationships compound, your skills compound, your money compounds, because it builds on the base that you already have. And that's the beauty about life. So if you start early, and even if you start low, you would still be far, far richer, more knowledgeable, happier than somebody who started later. Only because of the fact that you started early. So please don't be like, अरे अभी तो सिर्फ 500 रुपए डालूंगी, उससे क्या ही हो जाएगा, उससे कौन से करोड़ों बन जाएंगे. But वो बूंद बूंद से ही सागर बनता है. And जब वो सालों सालों तक आप करते हैं, you'll be shocked and surprised at how far it will take you. And you don't have to believe me, data is there for that. Personal finance, sir, बताइए personal finance पे conversation.
We actually have a show called Dhan Daulat that comes every weekend, which is specifically for personal finance. If you check out Money Today on our website, we have a full portal which puts out a lot of personal finance information across insurance, taxation, investment, save, invest, prosper, SIP. So there's a lot of personal finance information. But I think the point that Ankur makes is important. Don't trust anyone. Read for yourself. Learn as much as you can and do what you think is best. I was very scared when he said I replicated somebody's investment strategy. That's dangerous. And the point that he makes about investing very little, but continuing to invest periodically, I think that's really the way to go. But आप जाके check करना Money Today and Dhan Daulat.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hashtag not an ad.
Pooja.
So you took some drastic decisions with your education and then your corporate life. What were the lessons that you carried on with yourself when you were getting into content creation, that this is what you can stay with, but this is what you can remember, some of the tasks or decisions or leadership qualities that you had? And how much of financial independence helped you to make that switch to content creation? That you thoda paisa rehna chahiye for you to make that change. Don't make a jump quickly.
The reason I'm laughing at the second question is because the story there is fascinating. But I won't go into that. It's a long one. There's one thing that's helped me immensely, Pooja, is I am a student of routine. And I believe fundamentally that if you become a student of routine, you can accomplish anything that you want to do in life. Most people don't get into that routine itself because they are scared to do that. So I run my content creation business like a business. It is no different from a startup. If you go into the depth of it, the teams, the way we work, the project management tools that we use, the software that we use, how we engage with each other, the feedback that comes in, all of this is run like a absolute machinery. Creativity for me is a process. It is not this flash in the pan, jo ek din chamak jayega and viral ban jayegi duniya. It is a process. And I incidentally just met Yashraj Mukhate. Like, that guy is a guy of process. Lagta hai, अरे no, रसोड़े में ये था वो था. नहीं, वो बेचारा सालों से लगा हुआ था उस चीज को करने में. बेचारा क्यों actually? Like, he was at it and he was good at it. One day somebody figured it out and it blew up. And he still continues to do it. He loves that. He wouldn't have any other way, and that's the same thing that I would say as well.
One of the problems I notice with people who create content for digital and social media is that they get obsessed with engagement metrics. कितने लोगों ने like किया, कितने लोगों ने subscribe किया, अच्छा वीडियो चल गया तो खुश हो गए, एकदम excited, नहीं चला तो depressed हो गए, यार कोई देख ही नहीं रहा है तो. Does that happen to you, and how do you deal with that?
I'll be lying if I said that it affects me. It actually doesn't. And I'd like to believe, but I could be completely wrong. I'd like to believe age has something to do with it. I started content creation at the age of 40. So there was no validation that I was looking at from the world. There was frankly nothing that I had to prove. I was very happy with my life. I have a lovely family. I have a lovely life. I'm very happy with what I have. So there was no, oh, Ankur Warikoo superstar, yes, vagara, vagara. I can give literally all of this away overnight, move to the mountains and not worry about it. And I'm not saying this because it's a nice thing to say. I genuinely mean it. So no, I never chased it. And that's why the student of routine really helps, because if you were to dig deep into the way that we work as a team, nobody ever talks about the output. Everyone is centered on the input. कितने वीडियो जा रहे हैं, क्या content जाएगा, कितना होगा.
And I'll tell you why. There were lots of TikTok content creators who suddenly in, you know, the small towns of India were making a lot of money, and they thought that could be a good life, and they were going crazy, having fun, and you're wondering what the hell are they doing, but you know, it was working for them. And then TikTok went kaput. And then, you know, they don't know what to do. So there is a big risk in the whole model.
It is. And the risk is always in life, Rahul, which is if you don't know how you got what you have in life, you will always be scared of losing it. And I often say this, in some parallel universe, if you were dropped again, would you still be where you are in life? And if that is a function of luck, serendipity, मुझे नहीं पता कि मेरी जिंदगी इतनी अच्छी कैसे बन गई, then you will always be scared of losing it. But if you have a mechanism of replicating what it is, whether it's TikTok, there's so many TikTokers who then started on, say, Instagram and YouTube, have done commendably well for themselves. And there's so many who just fizzled out because they didn't know what to do after this.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of this session. I have time only for a couple of quick questions. That lady in the middle in the black t-shirt, can the mic go to her, please?
I'm a great admirer of your work. And basically, I assume myself as a content creator and a writer. And sometimes, not sometimes, many of the times in my life, I have been struck with a syndrome called impostor syndrome. And whenever I create content, I think it's not good enough. And because I am a chaser of perfectionism, I always shove my work down the drain. And that's how my work never sees a light of the day. So how to cope up with this syndrome and how to better myself as a content creator and a writer?
So imposter syndrome is a reality. I suffer from it as well. Everybody in this room would as well. The question is, how does it affect you? Does it paralyze you, which could be the case at your end? Yes. Or does it actually get you to coexist with it? My way of doing it is ship it out. Ship it out. Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Somebody will say, this wasn't good. Somebody will say, hey, you can do this better. But especially in our country, people are eager to call out your bullshit and tell you where you're wrong. Why would you let go of this opportunity? आपको free में consulting advice मिल रही है. Whether you accept it or not.
अभी आपको मिली consulting advice.
Exactly, right? कि कैसे मुझे अपना पूरा बदलना है. But the idea is, if you are able to just take the shots at you and just believe कि दुनिया में कोई भी सुबह उठ के ये नहीं बोलता है कि मैं आज इस कंटेंट राइटर की जिंदगी बर्बाद कर दूंगा. Nobody does that. Because nobody has that time, that bandwidth. तो अपनी जिंदगी से इतने बेचारे परेशान हैं. Then the only reason why they're telling you what they're telling you is because they genuinely feel something strongly about it. And it becomes your decision whether you accept it or not. So I always crave for feedback, whether it is trolling, whether it is actual good quality feedback, whether it's mean-spirited, I couldn't care less. I'd be like, if I just dissociate the message from the messenger and the tonality, everything that is targeted at me, if I work on it, I only become better. I only become better. And that is so fascinating. I don't have to pay somebody to make me better. I don't have to ask somebody, how do I get better? People are giving me that feedback. So please ship it out every single day. And you'll be shocked and surprised at how far you will be 6 months from now.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to do a pop quiz, okay? The quiz is this. I want to see how many people sitting here actually listening to the essence of what Ankur is saying. So what he's saying is, believe in the power of compounding, invest a little bit of your income every month, not in a fixed deposit, preferably in a mutual fund. There's so many people in their early 20s over here. आप में से कितने लोग ऐसे कर रहे हैं कि आपकी जो भी मासिक आमदनी है उसका एक छोटा सा हिस्सा किसी ना किसी म्यूचुअल फंड में डाल रहे हैं? Let's see how many people are actually listening to. Are you serious?
Slightly lower than I expected, but sure, that's a good start.
That's a big number. If I done this 10 years ago, there would have been just 1 or 2 hands that went up, and I think this is indicative of how the whole idea of investing in stocks, investing in mutual funds, is now very commonplace, which is why you are the rock star that you are.
Not a rock star. I
No,
believe
but it's true because
there-
you're also playing on the trend, right? If the trend is that you got, say, 10 crore demat accounts open, and you got all these people putting their hands up and saying they're investing through the SIP route in mutual funds, that's also why your videos do as well as they do. Where do you find ideas from? Because personal finance is as restrictive, and this is a issue a lot of content creators will have. Do you ever run out of ideas or things to say? How do you keep getting new things to make videos on?
हमारे देश में अगर कोई भी इंसान मुझे ये बोलेगा ना, I've run out of ideas, तो वो शायद सुनना देखना बंद कर चुका है. How can we run out of ideas? There are ideas literally everywhere. Like this room has given me 3 ideas about my new videos. So I just keep listening. People love talking. People love sharing and commenting. And all that I have to do is just have a filter mechanism so that I'm picking up things, as you rightly pointed out, जो ज़मीर को touch ना करें.
So we'll check his video and we'll check whether he credited it to Sahitya English or not. ठीक है, जब भी आपके वो तीनों वीडियो आएंगे, 3 वीडियोस पे आपने बोलना है कि मैं वहाँ पे साहित्य इंग्लिश में था, मैंने ये सुना.
Absolutely.
And this video is based on that. Okay, one last question and then we wrap up. Okay, so we got more hands than time. Let's give this gentleman an opportunity to ask a question. Go for it.
Hi, Ankur sir. I'm a business analyst. My name is Pinkesh in a corporate world. Actually, you were saying that you need to create content or something. Means you should have minimum 2 sources of income. One from the monthly salary and second. Is it possible for a business analyst doing full-time job of 8 hours, 9 hours, giving shift in a MNC and then creating content? Is it possible? Second thing is that what will happen if you fall into trap of any controversy? आप कुछ भी कई बार वीडियो में कुछ बोलते हुए कंट्रोवर्सी बन जाता है तो आप यू विल बी लिटरली सैक्ड.
Sacked by whom? He's an entrepreneur.
नो आई एम ए बिजनेस एनालिस्ट इन ए कॉर्पोरेट कंपनी MNC. तो अगर मेरी कोई वीडियो फंस जाती है थोड़ी सी भी कहीं से, आज तो कुछ भी हो सकता है ना, 1 सेकंड 10 सेकंड का क्लिप निकाल के चला दिया, फिर तो बहुत रिस्क है. तो लिटरल प्रैक्टिकल एडवाइस क्या होगा?
आपके सवाल के टोन से मेरी एडवाइस होगी, मत करिए. नहीं, जनरली मत करिए. क्योंकि मेरा ये बहुत सिंपल रूल है लाइफ में. अगर कोई भी पूछता है ना इज इट पॉसिबल, तो मैं बोलता हूं मत करिए. क्योंकि जिस दिन पॉसिबल होगा ना उस दिन आप ये सवाल ही नहीं पूछेंगे. सिंपल. तो जिस दिन आप ये सवाल पूछना बंद कर देंगे इज इट पॉसिबल, उसी दिन वो पॉसिबल होगा दोस्त. उससे पहले नहीं हो पाएगा. क्योंकि उससे पहले तो दुविधा है ना दिमाग में, करूं नहीं करूं, या बेकार में अच्छी खासी नौकरी है, कुछ बोल दिया, किसी ने 10 सेकंड की क्लिप बना दी, वो कहीं कहीं चला गया, उसमें कुछ किसी ने और डाल दिया, ये नौकरी भी गई, कंटेंट क्रिएटर तो वैसे नहीं बन पाए. मत करिए. फिर जरूरी नहीं है बनना. Like just because you've come to this event does not mean that you have to become a content creator when you step out. This is a place for you to learn. And there are multiple ways that you can create income streams. Content is not the coolest, nearly not the most exciting for you to make one. So you have your stable income stream. Awesome. That's brilliant. Keep that on hold. And now start thinking of where else do you not have this doubt or this question? Where does your mind actually feel free? आप पेंटिंग कर सकते हैं, आप कविताएं बना सकते हैं, आप शायद किसी को एडवाइस कर सकते हैं, आप किसी के लिए फ्रीलांस कर सकते हैं, आप B2B सेटअप में जा सकते हैं. You don't have to become a people person. You don't have to be in front of a camera. You don't have to put your thing out. There are endless opportunities in the world today to make money if that's where you're centered on. But if you want to create content, then of course you have to come with whatever it brings with it.
Okay, so that gentleman over there has a question. Just go for it. The one in the suit. इनको माइक दीजिए.
सर एक्चुअली मेरा क्वेश्चन नहीं है, दे आर ट्राइंग मेनी टाइम्स, सो उनका क्वेश्चन है, तो एक बार उनका भी क्वेश्चन ले लीजिए.
इन्होंने हाथ इतना जोर से ऊपर किया कि मैं नहीं पूछना चाहता, मैं दूसरे से पूछवाना चाहता हूँ. गो फॉर इट. किससे पूछवाना, आपकी मर्जी, बोलिए. यार दोस्त हो तो ऐसा, उसने इतने जोर से हाथ ऊपर किया कि मेरा सवाल नहीं है, उनका सवाल है, मैं उनके लिए हाथ ऊपर कर रहा हूँ. दैट्स अ फर्स्ट.
First of all, I say thank you this person who has made me given.
अच्छा, आप इनको जानते नहीं हो?
No, I don't know.
ये तो सही है यार. That's amazing.
He's a very nice person, really. So, good afternoon, Ankur sir. I'm Pradeep Kumar, founder of Yatri Suvidha. Basically, I have started my entrepreneurial journey. So, I have got an idea in which I was comfortable, and I have even developed some part of my product. So, what are some advice, at least 3 advice you want to give me that should I consider while growing? And the second thing, should I have a co-founder after or not?
तीन advice वगैरह कुछ नहीं, सिर्फ एक advice है
Okay,
दोस्त.
okay, that would be.
Yeah, and that one advice is just keep your ears and eyes open to listen to what customers are saying.
Okay.
चाहे वो झूठ हो या सच हो या चाहे वो सच आपको चुभता हो. Because if they don't like your product, they will tell you that. Then you can't be blinded by your own need to create a startup. That is not how life works. If they like the product, they will tell you what they like about it. If they like it remotely but love to have you do something else, they will tell you that as well. तो जितना आप उनको सुनेंगे, उतना ही आप improve होते रहेंगे, or you will realize this is maybe not something that they care about and you should opt out of. The only thing that matters in this world is you to listen to what the world wants to tell you, because they're constantly telling you something that you should hear. That's
I want to do another pop quiz. Everyone, many of you who've stood up have said we are entrepreneurs. How many people sitting in this audience at this time are either on an entrepreneurial journey at this moment or would like to be entrepreneurs? या entrepreneur हैं या entrepreneur बनना चाहते हैं, वो सारे लोग अपने हाथ ऊपर करें. That's like 1/4 of the audience, and that's pretty commendable as well. That
awesome.
Nobody wants to work for anybody else. This whole idea of working for someone else is just passé. किसी के लिए काम नहीं करना, मुझे अपनी करनी है.
I love that. We are a country of entrepreneurs. The only difference is that was self-employment for the longest time. But if you look around, most of us have grown up in families where we had shops, we had small businesses, we had 3 to 5 people setups, and that was self-employment. But today it'll be like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm cool as shit. And the audacity of dreams has exploded. That's the big difference. People earlier used to be like, यही हमारी जिंदगी है, यही हमारा नसीब है, हम इतने ही रहेंगे, इसी में काम चला लेंगे. But now there's an entire generation that is like, why should we stop at just 5 people? We want to be 50, rule the world, sell our software to the world, sell our products to the world, sell to India. And that has been the big tectonic shift that I've seen at least in the last 20 years.
Why did you call your book what you did? You know, I looked at this and I said,
You sound like my dad.
What? No, I have no problem. I mean, it's totally okay. I'm saying, what are you thinking? Like, why this title?
The story about this title is I have 2 friends who I'm really close to, and in 2011 they gifted me on my birthday this poster called "Do Epic Shit," and it sounded really cool at that point. And I do epic shit. It's like nice, so I put it on my table and I used to stare at it every single day. And over time I realized, Rahul, that this is how I want to live my life. It is do, which is action greater than thought. इतने सारे लोग होंगे शायद इस रूम में जो बोलेंगे अरे ये आइडिया तो मेरे पास 5 साल पहले आया था. कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता दोस्त. Somebody did something about it and you didn't. That person will win and you will never if you believe your idea was worth things. So action greater than thought. Epic, which means you're doing something that is bigger than who you are. Whatever orbit you were born in or you were raised in, you have the audacity and the courage to go outside of that. And shit is you having fun while you're doing it. So you're doing things that are bigger than yourself and you're having fun while you're doing it. That's exactly how I would want to live life.
He's most certainly doing epic shit, and I hope so are you, and I hope you had a good time at this. You have a packed house, you know, which is pretty interesting that all these people are coming in, listening essentially to personal finance and sensible advice, not some finfluencer who's helping people punt and stock tips, but this is actually good, sensible advice about the value of compounding. Can we have a very big round of applause
Thank
for
you.
Ankur Warikoo
Thank you.
coming here this afternoon. The sun is out. It's a perfect Delhi
Beautiful.
afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for
Enjoy
having
the rest
me.
of the afternoon. Thank
Thank
you
you so
guys.
much. Thank you, everyone.